Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jonah White. I'm an independent apocalyptic author of the Shadows of Darkness series. Currently my first book is available on Amazon, so if you want to check that out, feel free to check it out. It is Shadows of Darkness, published by Jonah S. White. And if you haven't already, feel free to like, subscribe, that way you can help support this channel, as well as this lets me know that you like these sort of videos. So what we're going to be talking about in today's video is how to write a page-turning and compelling Act 3. So the first thing you need to know about Act 3 is that when it comes to Act 1, it is very important because this is to hook your readers and get them invested in the story that you're trying to tell. Act 2 is very important. It's probably like the most difficult act to write because it is by far the longest act out of all three of the three acts. And this is where your story can get bogged down and you're trying to like keep your readers engaged and raise the stakes. But Act 3 is extremely important in its own ways because this is the payoff of the story that you've been setting up through Act 1 and Act 2. You're trying to give your readers a satisfying conclusion, and if you're writing a series, you're trying to like give your readers a satisfying conclusion, as well as you're trying to entice them into continuing the series or reading the next book that you may be releasing. But without any further ado, let's get on with the tips on how to write a compelling Act 3. So the first thing that you want to do when you are writing your Act 3 or when you're moving into Act 3 is to raise the stakes to the all-time high and the tension, because this is where your characters really need to accomplish their goals, or the antagonist force of your story is like at their all-time high and is like winning against your characters. Now if you remember, when it comes to Act 1, you are establishing the stakes and the tension. Act 2, you're building it, and then 3, it's reached its highest point where it almost seems impossible for your characters to accomplish this goal. Now you can make that your characters think they're going to accomplish this goal, and this kind of feeds into the next point, which is the all hope is lost moment. Now you can do this at the end of the second act, or you can do it at the beginning or something like within Act 3. But it's really up to you. But like usually Act 3s, you implement the all hope is lost, where it's like your characters feel like they're going to accomplish their goal, but then their whole plan comes crashing down. The whole plan that they've been working with the whole story. So it all comes crashing down, and then it seems like they're not going to accomplish their goal or anything, or this was all pointless, and they're going to like lose all hope, like, well, I'm never going to accomplish my goals. And it looks like your bad guys, if you do have them in your story, they have defeated your character. Now, the reason why you want these sort of moments is because when they do rise up and accomplish their goal, or if they don't, if you're trying to write a bad sort of ending, but let's talk about the good endings. So if you want your characters to like rise and accomplish this goal, if you have an all hope is lost moment, it makes their victory more triumphant and less predictable, and kind of keeps your readers on edge or kind of guessing how your characters are going to like rise up and accomplish their goals, which makes it way more engaging and page turning. That way you kind of like keep your readers engaged all the way through the end of your book. So the next thing you want to do is obviously have your characters change or find out that what they were believing this whole time was wrong, and change into better characters, or change or become different from what they were at the beginning of your story, because this whole story hasn't only been like a plot development, but it's also been a character development for your characters. Because remember, a lot of us readers like character development stories, or character driven stories where your characters are forced to change or learn something from beginning to end, where they're a different person. So this is, in Act 3, sort of like the payoff, and you get to like see what the character has learned from the beginning or has been working towards to become. Like if your character was on a hero's journey and was working towards being the hero, this is the time to pay it off, because we've been invested in this story because we wanted to see this character finally reach the apex of their training, or to become the hero they were always destined to be, or that they were trying to strive to be. And this is the time to give the readers this moment of satisfaction of all of the build-up and the struggles that the character has been going through throughout the whole story. And this kind of feeds into the next point, which is have all the payoffs for all the setups that you establish throughout the story, mainly in Act 1, but you don't want to do this at the expense of pacing, because remember, the third act is like you've reached the highest peak of the tension. So now it's like, it's pretty much a downward roller coaster from there. So you don't want to kill your pacing in the third act, trying to pay off everything that you set up in the first act. Now you don't want to do this at the expense of the pacing, but you don't want to just leave out the payoffs where like you had so much setup but there's no payoffs, where a lot of readers are going to feel unsatisfied that you even bothered with the setups and then none of it was paid off. It's sort of like the term Chekhov's gun. Like if you set up that there's a weapon in your story, then the payoff must mean that you have to like make that weapon useful, or that weapon needs to be used in your story. So make sure that you're paying off all the setups that you established in the first act and maybe some in the beginning of the second act. So the final thing I would like to talk about when it comes to creating a page turning act 3, and this is sort of like for a lot of people that like want better reviews or like more recommendations, or like if you're writing a series, but that is to give a satisfying ending that fits the story and it's something that you've planned out, and it helps the readers like enjoy your book. Because especially for a lot of people that are writing series, you don't want to like have a climax and then just cut it off, or like it doesn't feel whole or satisfying, just so you can like leave it open-ended for the sequel. Like there's nothing wrong with having open-ended endings for your book to set up a sequel, or much less having setups for your sequel, or leaving loose threads. But there's a difference between leaving loose threads for a sequel versus just not giving people the complete climax or that satisfied conclusion to your story, in order to help readers fully engage with this book before just worried about the next book. Because remember, we're here reading this book, so let's focus on this book before we start worried about the next book. Don't give people an unsatisfying ending. And another thing is, please don't do the whole confusing ending where you're just leaving it up to the audience to decide what happens. Like, yes, this is fine, but you want to like limit this, because not all your readers, I would say like maybe 90% of your readers are not going to be analyzing your book to figure out, or like dissecting your story to really figure out an ending that best suits them. You don't want to like leave it so confusing or vague or convoluted where you're just like, well, my audience can figure it out, or I purposely left it vague so that way it kind of keeps the audience thinking. That's fine, but that's for such a niche audience. So make sure that your ending is clear enough where your audience can get where you are going. And if you want to leave some loose threads or some things that you want your audience to think about or draw conclusions about the ending, that's fine. But like, remember, most audiences are not going to pick up on a lot of that stuff, and it's going to be a big turn off, and you're not gonna like get that word of mouth for your audience. So that's going to conclude today's video on how to write a page turning act 3. I know this was shorter than the act 1 and act 2 videos that I did, but I did find out that this act 3 can be both the easiest as well as the hardest act to write. Because the easiest because it's the shortest, and plus you're just building towards this moment and you're just paying off everything that was set up in the first 2 acts. But it's the hardest as well because you're trying to like satisfy your readers with that conclusion that they have been wanting to see, or something, or you're trying to like subvert expectations with your third act, as well as like you're trying to like get people invested in your novel and possibly your series, where they'll want to continue reading your book. And this can lead to better marketing, because people, if they like your book, they'll recommend it to other people. But without any further ado, I'm going to be doing more videos like this where I do writers tips videos, as well as like vlogs, and I'm going to be posting my personal journey to publication series, where I kind of like talk about some of the steps that I took when it came to publishing my first book, and what are my plans this time around when it comes to my sequel, as well as like some plans I have for the coming years when it comes to my Shadows of Darkness series. But if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and I'll see you next time. Happy writing and good day.